Again, I'm Geoff Tan with the DFC. I'll be talking about DFC second. I'm going to start with the USAID part of the presentation, which is on the specific activities associated with the PNG electricity partnership that we have with our colleagues from Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. So we launched this a couple of years ago and kicked off maybe 18 months ago. This 5-year program, $57 million to support PNG advance its efforts in the electricity sector. You see here, I won't read through all of this for you, but just want to highlight a couple of things. One is we're very focused on supporting PNG's efforts to increase energy access, right, to its population, and then equally to energy security. So the objectives that you see here focus on the regulations and the utility, number one, and number two, on microgrids as part of that effort for access and catalyzing private sector investment. So today, what I'm going to cover, again, this is an abbreviated form of what my colleague Julie would have been presenting, is just the mini-grids and private sector mobilization aspects. So as you all well know, PNG is very well suited to mini-grids and microgrids, given the geography and the highly disparate populations. They exist already, but there's clearly the opportunity and the need to do a lot more. So our program, USAID's program, is focused on that, and we see there's a lot of opportunity, right? Because it's a $400 million market in our view, just in terms of the mini-grids themselves, and then in associated activities, right, such as solar home systems, solar water pumps, and the like, is another $400 million sector. Very quickly, a plug for the USAID Electrification Partnership Guide. This is available on the website. You can download it. Very handy if not already familiar with the sector. So I want to talk about two things in terms of how do we actually get some of these microgrids to move forward, again, with the context of enabling the private sector to take them on. And what USAID is currently looking at are these two models, right? So as many of you know, for something to receive investment, it has to be commercial, the investors have to make money, and they have to be comfortable with the risks that are associated with that investment. So here, we're looking at two models where that might be feasible. So one is focused on facilitating investment through corporates, right, where the corporation itself has maybe a portfolio of projects, and others, equity investors, debt bankers, and so on, can participate through the company into those projects, right? And this has the benefit of achieving, hopefully, scale on the one hand, as well as risk mitigation on the other, through the diversification of the portfolio, as well as the fact that there's a corporation that's undertaking this whole exercise. And of course, the assessment has been made that the corporation has that capacity, right, and capability. That's one. Second is a project level investment exercise, where we look to catalyze individual assets through a more of a project financing type structure, right? So here we see that rather than go through a corporate or a company above that then indirectly invests, so to speak, or we indirectly invest through the corporate who invests directly into the mini-grids, the investor or the lender are going straight into the mini-grid itself. This typically is a more challenging proposition, frankly, speaking as a banker, but it's one that needs to be explored. And here USAID is trying to explore all avenues to see whether or not that is feasible, whether or not there are parties in the ecosystem that might want to be supportive of that. There you also see that we anticipate grants and subsidies being more relevant, more necessary, compared to the corporate approach. So how else is the program supporting this investment concept? USAID, and so USAID is working through a variety of contractors and other parts of the system. They're making available support for various aspects of project development and implementation, right? Starting with providing kind of the macro context. I just shared with you one example of that in terms of the guide. Then working on the environmental and regulatory framework, which again is the area that I'm not covering in terms of working with PNG Power, working with the regulator as well. And hopefully putting in place kind of the right context for business plans to move forward. Then, of course, helping clients, customers figure out what a business plan would look like. Figuring out, I'm not going to read through all of this for you, but figuring out with the business plan, what are the risks and how do we mitigate against them, through the participation of different types of entities or structures. And then implementing and, of course, making sure that the targeted development and social impacts are, in fact, achieved. So we talked a little bit about the two models, the corporate and the independent mini-grid. Here, this talks about the mini-grid itself, whether it's through a corporate or independent. Again, how are they going to become viable, right, for financiers, for investors? So for that, as you've heard in other comments already today, the key is revenue generation, cash flows, right? Where do we see those coming from? How susceptible to risk are they? How predictable are they, right? So these are various models, and it starts with an anchor, right? An entity, a business, preferably, that basically says, okay, I will buy all of the power from this system, or I'll buy 70% of it, or what have you. That could be, telecom towers, fuel stations, commercial buildings, mining companies, airports, etc., right? So they form the anchor of the grid. And then in the periphery, I should say, other companies, right, can make up the rest of that 30, 40 odd percent. And then, of course, the community, right, which is what we also very much prioritize in terms of access to energy. They round out the whole picture. So we see mini grids as a way within PNG to very much advance access to energy, as well as energy security in the context of solar mini grids. So if you want to learn more about that, please, I'm happy to try to answer questions, but please connect with Julie. Her contact information is up. And it looks like I need to hurry up. So very quickly on DFC, which is what what I represent. USAID, as you've seen, really kind of is like the development assistance side of the U.S. government. The DFC is the development finance side. So in this kind of picture, they would develop the projects, and if they are viable, we would come in and finance them. Okay. So just to give you a quick sense of the priorities, maybe no surprise, climate, healthcare, also inclusive growth and connectivity, and gender. So very much focused on the climate crisis. We've got our own objectives. Again, I won't read through them. What we offer. So debt financing is the bulk of what we offer, loans and loan guarantees. I'll come back to that in my next slide, but we also offer political risk insurance for foreign investors going into a market. We have, private equity funds. We have direct investment as well, and then we have technical assistance, which I'll also touch on very quickly. Debt financing, very wide range in terms of what we can offer, from 1 million to 1 billion. Project finance, corporate finance, very much tailored to the opportunity and the investment in question. We very much try to fill in the gaps in terms of the markets where we operate. Again, we operate only in emerging markets, and we don't compete with private sector alternatives. So again, we try to fill the gaps for commercially viable transactions. Very quickly here, as an example, a few examples. The first renewable energy IPP in Indonesia, we financed that to try to pave the way for the private sector to take that up. On the other end of the spectrum, a corporate finance facility, very small in relative terms, for a solar home system provider. I also want to quickly mention our technical development assistance, which is where we think we can also come in early into projects that we feel have potential to help move them along. Just to be clear, and again, I won't read all this out to you, but it's only available to companies, clients, projects that are accessing DFC for long-term capital support. So it's not a standalone product. And again, here we're quite flexible. It's tailored to the projects, anywhere from 100,000 of our contribution, and it's a 50-50 proposition, to up to 3 million or so, where we support work that is done by a third party, but is focused on activities that are, if successful, will accelerate the development of the project or the investment, address roadblocks, sticking points, etc. Right, and then ideally, again, with those removed, we move forward to financial close. Happy to answer more questions about that. My time is up. My contact details above also if you want to contact me. Thanks again for your time and for your patience.